Some people feel most like themselves at home. They don't need crowded places or a lot of attention to feel alive. They feel better in a familiar space with quiet around them where they can finally breathe. From the outside, that can look like they are avoiding life. But they are not. They are just living it differently. They are not running away from the world. They are choosing peace. There's a reason for that. People who love staying home often have very active inner lives. Their thoughts are busy. Their imagination is strong. Their emotions run deep. A lot is happening inside them, even when nothing much is happening around them. So home doesn't feel like hiding. It feels like the one place where all of that has room to exist. Psychologists sometimes describe this as being more connected to your inner world than your outer one. These are the kind of people who don't need a lot of noise to feel joy. They can sit by a window, drink something warm, and feel completely content. While other people look for excitement out in the world, they find something steady in quiet moments. And for a lot of them, it wasn't always easy to accept that. Many spent years trying to keep up with people who loved parties, constant plans, and non-stop energy. They tried to match that pace. But at some point, they realized something important. Their calm wasn't a problem. Their need for solitude wasn't weakness. It was just how they were wired. I remember when that really clicked for me. I used to think staying home too much would make me feel lonely, or like I was missing out. But what I actually felt was relief. I felt understood by the quiet around me. I realized I didn't need noise to feel alive. I didn't need everyone looking at me to feel seen. I started valuing the sound of pages, turning more than the sound of applause. That's when I understood that peace is its own way of living. Staying home doesn't always mean being alone. Sometimes it means being with yourself, really listening to yourself. And that's something a busy world doesn't make much space for. A lot of people who prefer staying home have one trait in common. They are deeply introspective. They think a lot. They notice a lot. Small moments stay with them. Memories mean something. Feelings don't just pass through. They sit with them and try to understand them. Joy feels full. Sadness feels layered. Hope becomes something personal. They don't rush past their emotions just to keep up with everybody else. And that matters, because studies have linked comfort with solitude to things like creativity, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Their quiet gives them space to understand other people, even when other people don't always understand them. Still, the world tends to judge them. People say things like, "You should get out more or don't you get bored?" And those comments sting, because they come with their idea that homebodies are somehow lacking, like they are incomplete. But that's never really been true. A lot of great thinkers, artists, and innovators spent huge parts of their lives alone, in their own space, working through ideas that later changed everything. That may be the part people miss. Silence teaches things the world often overlooks. It teaches patience. It teaches observation. It builds a kind of strength that doesn't need attention to be real. So why does home feel so safe to them? Sometimes it's because the outside world is just too much. Noise, chaos, unpredictability, emotional tension. Some people feel all of that more intensely than others. Their nervous system does better with stability. They need a place where they can settle instead of constantly reacting. Home gives them that. It gives them control over their environment, and that control brings peace. Sometimes it's also about trust. They don't give themselves to everyone, not because they are cold, but because they feel things deeply. They know what emotional safety is worth. And sometimes it's not about fear at all. It's simply preference. A real, honest preference for a space that feels warm, familiar, and calm. They build lives around things that don't require a crowd. Reading, gaming, painting, watching favorite movies, working on something personal. Their joy doesn't have to be loud to be real. They don't measure happiness by how big their event was. They measure it by how it felt. And here's something they don't always say out loud. They love deeply. They care quietly. They notice more than people realize. When there are fewer distractions, the heart pays closer attention. If you're someone who loves staying home, you've probably felt misunderstood at some point. Maybe you've wondered whether there's something about you that needs fixing. Maybe you've asked yourself why loud places drain you, or why you never seem to want what other people want. But maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe the world just doesn't make enough room for people like you. People who listen before they speak. People who think before they act. People who feel things before they perform them. Let me stop saying they for a second and say I. I used to think the world would forget me if I stayed in my room too long. But over time, I noticed something. My inner world was growing. My thoughts were getting richer. My ideas kept me up later than any party ever could. I was finding meaning in simple things, in my own space, in my own mind. And slowly I realized home isn't just a place. Sometimes it's a state of mind. Maybe that sounds familiar to you. Maybe you've always felt a little different. Maybe you actually enjoy your own company more than the energy of a crowd. And maybe no one has ever told you that this part of you has value. But it does. Your quiet has weight. Your silence has depth. Your solitude is not a burden. It's a gift. Because the truth is, people who love staying home are not avoiding life. They are trying to live it with intention. They don't want to waste themselves on shallow conversation or empty experiences. They want what feels real. Meaning, honesty, connection, even if it only comes from a few people instead of many. Psychologists have found that people who prefer solitude are often very self-aware. They tend to understand their own emotions clearly. They know what drains them. They know what restores them. A lot of people go their whole lives without learning that. Homebodies often learn it early. That doesn't mean they never feel lonely. Solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Loneliness is painful because it isn't chosen. Solitude can be deeply restoring because it is. You can feel lonely in a packed room. You can feel peaceful sitting by yourself at home. Some days, staying home feels like protection, a break from a world that asks too much. Other days, it feels like freedom. Freedom to just exist without performing for anybody. And this goes deeper than introversion. People assume anyone who loves being home must be an introvert, but that's not always true. Even outgoing people can need the peace of home to reset. It's less about labels and more about energy. Or do you lose it? Or do you get it back? A lot of home-loving people are also careful with vulnerability. They don't open up fast. They need to feel safe first. Their hearts can seem guarded, but once they trust you, they care hard. Their inner life is rich and complicated. Their mind is always making connections, building ideas, replaying moments, creating meaning. They can turn silence into creativity. They can make everyday routines feel personal and grounding. They don't always need a destination to feel like their life matters. And yes, sometimes there's pain underneath it too. Sometimes people love home because the world outside has let them down. A friendship broke. Trust got betrayed. Their feelings were too much for the people around them. So they built a life where they no longer had to apologize for who they are. If you've ever stayed home because the outside world felt heavy, you're not broken. You were trying to protect your peace. That doesn't mean you don't have dreams. It doesn't mean your life is small. A lot of your hopes just live on the inside first. You want to do something meaningful, something real, something that reflects who you actually are. You don't need 100 people cheering for you. You'd rather have one person who truly gets you. And maybe this part will hit home too. For a lot of people, home is the one place where they don't feel judged. The one place where they don't have to act a certain way. Where the pressure drops. Where exhaustion softens into comfort. You stand by the window sometimes and watch the world move outside. Cars passing, people rushing, everything loud, fast, urgent. And part of you just knows, I'm okay here. But the world will keep trying to tell you otherwise. It praises hustle like rest is laziness. It treats stillness like failure. But rest is part of growth. Stillness helps you think clearly. Silence helps you understand things you can't hear in the noise. So even if you spend more time at home than other people do, your life is not on pause. You are still growing, still healing, still becoming. And because you feel deeply, you tend to love deeply too. Your relationships may be few, but they are real. When someone matters to you, they really matter. You give loyalty, care, and attention in a way a lot of people don't. You notice the small things, the shift in someone's voice, the text they didn't send, the pause before they say they are fine. You understand emotions not just through words, but through silence too. There's also something strong about being able to keep yourself company. A lot of people can't do that. They need constant distraction because being alone with their thoughts makes them uncomfortable. But people who love staying home often learn how to sit with themselves without falling apart. They can be alone and still feel whole. That's not something to be ashamed of. So let me say this as clearly as I can. You are not strange for loving the comfort of home. You are not lazy. You are not fragile. You are not wasting your life. You are building a life that doesn't drain you. And one day, when the time feels right, when the outside world feels a little more in sync with who you are, you may step out more. Not because you were forced to, not because you were shamed into it, but because you chose to. And when that day comes, it may feel even better because you learned how to be at peace before you got there. Until then, enjoy your coffee while it's hot. Keep exploring the world inside your own mind. Keep protecting your peace. Keep loving people quietly but deeply. Because people who love staying home are not missing life. A lot of the time, they are the ones who understand how to live it best.